the last thing we get is this stupid poem. What the so Abigail, Philosophy Tube, such a coward, doesn't clearly say what the point of this video is or what her position is in the video. Just ends it with this fucking poem. That's fucking disgusting.
Yeah.
Okay, if you're gonna be a shithead and you're gonna advocate for violence and stochastic terrorism, at least have the balls to do it. No pun intended. At least come out and do it. Okay, don't hide behind 20 layers of fucking irony and winks and nudges and poems that can be interpreted intentionally in either direction. I do think this video is an advocation for violence and stochastic terrorism. And I would argue to her face, if she, because she'll say, no, you misunderstand me. I'll say, you intentionally made it vague. You intentionally didn't say exactly what your position is. So it's entirely reasonable for me or anyone else to think that you're advocating for violence and you're being an irresponsible quit with your platform. So you, Philosophy Tube. I'm kind of surprised this video snuck under the radar, okay, for a lot of people. This is a very strange video. So Philosophy Tube, we've covered Philosophy Tube many times. Abigail Thorne, seems to be advocating for violent revolution.
No way.
The ecologist Andreas Malm was one of the people involved in the action against Swoj Pump. He's been an environmentalist since the early 90s, literally longer than I've been alive. In that time, millions of people have gone on marches, millions of children have taken part in school strikes for climate, there's been letter-writing campaigns and Extinction Rebellion, and with the exception of the Unabomber and a few others, all of that's been completely non-violent. Malm and others say that's pretty remarkable. It is strange and striking that climate change activists have not committed any acts of terrorism. After all...
So I did read this guy's paper. And his basic point, well, I'll let her read the rest of the quote before I get
I was going to say.
Terrorism is for the individual by far the modern world's most effective form of political action, and climate change is an issue about which people feel just as strongly as about, say, animal rights. This is especially noticeable when you bear in mind the ease of things like blowing up petrol stations or vandalizing SUVs. In cities, SUVs are loathed by almost everyone except the people who drive them, and in a city the size of London, a few dozen people could, in a short space of time, make the ownership of these cars effectively impossible just by running keys down the side of them at a cost to the owner of several £1,000s a time. Say, 50 people vandalizing 4 cars each every night for a month, that's 6,000 trashed SUVs in a month. And the Chelsea tractors would soon be disappearing from our streets, so...
Not really, because we would just make keying cars capital crime, and then we just take care of those 50 people. Violence works, right? I mean, we just put them in the electric chair, and we're humming. Our Hummers are back on the streets in record time.
This is a very interesting paragraph, because at first there is a question like, okay, if people really do think that massive climate change is going to happen and it's going to doom civilization, wouldn't you expect some larger violent eco-terrorist response? But then it ends the paragraph with the lamest fucking shit ever. Let's go key a bunch of SUVs.
Right.
Like, how is that's really going to save the planet? You keying an SUV. That's really more you just annoyed because you're trying to back out of a parking space and you can't because 2 fucking SUVs on either side of you and you can't see.
Yeah.
This car is coming. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's strange to me because at first I'm like, oh, that's an interesting question, but then it ends in such this pathetically lame way about we're going to key SUVs. It's like, it's not going to accomplish like fucking anything. So, but why do you think that is, Adam? Why do you think people are not blowing up gas stations or coal mines or whatever?
Well, because they don't really believe it.
They
don't buy into this stuff as much. Well,
do you think that's You think that's really it? You think? I mean, there's lots of people I think that really do believe this.
Well, they're worried about going to jail, and they're doing
Oh.
their own things. They got their own projects and stuff that they're working on. Nobody has
Mhm.
time to save the planet. I maybe it's just the optimist in me, but I'm a fan of Boren Lomberg's work because he's really dived into solutions that would work and be cost effective. So really on the climate change issue, I think it's much to do about nothing
Mhm.
because there are, and people are constantly making progress on this, but there are fixes in the works. So I don't see how
Right.
this is just fear mongering by people on the left to get people to vote for them
Well,
because the catastrophe is around the corner.
what if the fear mongering about climate change is what creates the solution?
Well, I mean, there to a certain extent that's true. That has happened.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the
Right.
solutions that people are working on they're working on because people started talking about this. You know, back in the 80s, people started talking about this. There was that NASA scientist that came out and said this is a problem that we have to deal with. So,
Mm-hmm.
but I
Right.
don't think people are aware of how many people are working on the problem, and progress is continually being made.
Right.
Yeah,
Well,
which nobody
uh,
talks about, but whatever.
Kurt Sagat.
Mm-hmm.
I always forget how to say YouTube channel. Kurt Sagat in a nutshell. It's a really
Mm-hmm.
good YouTube channel. They have little cartoon
Yeah,
animated informational videos with
it's
the little birds.
yeah okay.
They just put out a video that's all about how to be optimistic because we actually are making good, positive changes in regards to climate change. And they talk about how, like, a lot of emissions, all the CO2 emissions are going down, how renewable energies have all, expanded exponentially, and how the cost of all the renewable energies has dropped dramatically. And then they talked about what I think will be the most important game changer around is that we have the technology now. It just has
Yeah,
to be iterated to become cheaper, but we have the technology now to suck carbon out of the
yeah.
atmosphere.
That's what I was looking up. They have these badass artificial trees that are carbon
Yeah.
scrubbers. Yeah.
There's a bunch of different forms of it. There are artificial trees. I think they're like these giant fans that they
Mm-hmm.
suck carbon out of the air and they transform it somehow in a chemical process to, like, I don't know, like acetone or something, some other
Yeah.
chemical that they can use for industrial manufacturing or something. Um, so no, like there are a lot of there is a lot of grounds being made that I think will, regardless of whether how bad climate change will be, will help. And the guy who wrote this paper, his point was sort of, I guess he sort of agreed with you. He was saying that he thinks the reason there isn't all this eco-terrorism is because people either don't believe it because they've all been lied to, by, big oil lobbying and all that stuff, or because, yeah, that's what he says, or because it's such a far away problem that it's hard for people to conceptualize. It's like, oh, 20 to 50 years from now, there's going to be a 1 degree increase, and you're not going to really, it's like it's hard to see that until it happens, sort of.
Yeah.
And I think that's true. I think that's a lot of why there isn't eco-terrorism. But I think the main reason is what you said, which is people are afraid of going to jail,
Mm-hmm.
and that in these, Western democratic societies, people generally have more of a respect for law and civil society and the systems. They don't want to just go around fucking blowing shit up and acting crazy generally.
Yeah. That's a good thing.
Yeah, that's a great thing. And I think that idea keeps a lot of society in check. And there is a problem. There's an issue here too with the climate change stuff, which is a lot of, like, you never know what the result of your activism will be. Now, you can't
Mm-hmm.
let this paralyze you, but you never know what the result of your activism will be and whether it will create positive or negative changes, even towards your own goal. And the perfect example of this is nuclear energy.
Yeah.
Because who was it that was against nuclear energy?
The climate, the environmentalists, the activists. Yeah.
The environmentalists, the environmental activists,
Which was,
vehemently
they were
against
dead
nuclear
wrong
energy.
on. Yeah, totally
Right.
fucked us. Nuclear would solve all of this.
Right. Fear mongering about nuclear energy for years.
Yeah.
And the public, because of Chernobyl, because of other incidents, were sort of sold this scary story of nuclear energy. And also because, oil and gas and coal were, still relatively cheap, and people weren't really thinking about climate change at the time. And so we kind of shifted away from nuclear energy, which if we hadn't done that, if the environmentalists hadn't kind of fucked us on that, we could probably, like, if nuclear energy had continued to the extent that, people want to continue it from the 50s going forward, I think there's a good chance that in most modern countries, nuclear energy would be the primary source of electricity and power in Western democracies. And our CO2 emissions would be like significantly lower.
Yeah, we wouldn't be buying oil and gas from autocrats either.
Right. Because, right. I mean, you still need it for cars until, electric. Well, I mean, if nuclear energy was so big, electric cars probably would have also been pushed out further.
Yep.
The technology would have been pushed out further. We have, I mean, even without us focusing on nuclear reactors, we have nuclear reactors now that are supposed to be unmeltdownable.
Yeah.
They're supposed to be way more safe. And ironically, it's like all the nuclear waste created so far is already dwarfed by all the battery waste from electric and solar and all this other shit. And like, I've seen this whole thing about how nuclear waste is, like, because it's so difficult to get rid of, it's sort of overblown in people's minds about the danger and how much, when apparently there is not actually that much nuclear waste created per the energy that you get compared to all other sources of power. And so this is part of the problem with people engaging in this violent activism. It's like, okay, the environmentalists were so sure this was how they're going to fix the problem. It's how they're going to save the planet. They're going to shut down nuclear energy. And I think that almost, like, that completely fucked us. It almost did the exact opposite.
Yeah.
So why don't these things happen? Mom also says inspire.
Now, she just trying to make that text hard to read. I feel like maybe so. We're not supposed to read that text, right?
Well, okay. When this is part of why I say this is like a wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Okay. She's not saying she wants you to go be an eco-terrorist. She's just reading someone else who's telling you.
Oh, okay.
Well, this guy isn't really telling you to be an eco-terrorist, but the segment that she takes from his article makes it sound like he's telling you to go be an eco-terrorist, right?
Well, he's telling you to go key cars.
Right. Why
like
don't these
fucking
things
jackass?
happen?
He's what a fucking dick.
And there's a right-wing version of this too, which is abortion. And this was, and that's why I'm not sure I 100% buy the, they don't think it's a real thing. And I think it is really a kind of respect for our civil society, because this was that weird guy who was on talking to Thaddeus Russell about lowering the age of consent and all that weird shit. He had his whole fucking crazy position on abortion where he's like, the right wing doesn't actually care about abortion and it's all fake, because if they really cared about it, they'd be like bombing abortion clinics 24/7 and all this other stuff. And that just, I don't know, it doesn't seem like a persuasive argument to me, because I think people that are anti-abortion, they really do think that it's killing a child or some innocent human being. I don't think it's just made up.
Yeah.
Mom also says that this inspiring tradition of nonviolence has failed. In my lifetime,
there you go. It's failed. It's
nonviolence has failed, huh? Okay. Yeah.
That guy that she's talking about, Mom, he's like a fucking crazy person too. He wrote a book called How to Blow Up a Pipeline, and he's just like, we should just go out there and we should be blowing up pipelines and destroying all this stuff, and It's so fucking dumb.
Mm-hmm.
It's so stupid because again, it's with the nuclear power thing. It's the way that the climate is going to be solved is going to be through if depending on how bad the situation really ends up being, is going to be through technological innovation. It is going to be through capitalism.
Yeah.
It's going to be through creating, green energy, nuclear energy, and carbon capture technologies. It's not going to be by just saying, oh, we're going to blow up a bunch of shit in the West. We're going to blow up a bunch of energy facilities, and people are just going to have to deal with having less energy. That's not a feasible solution.
So
that anyone's going to agree to.
Nobody wants to do with less energy. Come on now, people. Come on.
But that's why people like Malm are so fucking dumb. They don't have any, they have no idea how any of this works psychologically.
Yeah. No.
Or society. People are not going to just say, oh, we're going to cut our GDP in half because we're afraid that 30 years from now, maybe something will happen that we're not 100% sure on. That's never going to fly.
Yeah, they're so certain about it, though. That's what bugs me. So many people are just certain about things that are uncertain.
Right.
That's so damaging. Yeah.
And what he wanted to do, and it's funny because he wanted to, this guy's French.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, let's see, what year was this? It's from last year. Okay. Again, this is highly relevant to the Russia-Ukraine situation. Okay. France is building this, the longest heated oil pipeline in Tanzania and Uganda.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And he's like, we need to blow this up to save the planet. We need to destroy this pipeline.
Wow. That sucks.
Which, first of all, is idiotic because, okay, even if you destroy the pipeline, they're gonna just ship the oil in through other ways.
They're gonna ship the oil through trucks that are gonna be polluting the environment as they're actually shipping the oil, which is just fucking stupid. Yeah.
Exactly. So it makes no sense. But then it's like, okay, so you're just making Europe more reliable on Russia, I guess.
Yeah. They don't understand that people are working on the problem, but they're working on it sensibly in incremental steps. They have this it's because they can't see tangible progress because they're just not paying attention. They're like, we got to go out and disrupt. Yeah. A lot of people this is like their religion. It really is.
No, right. It is a religion.
This is the thing. Yeah.
It's their, the Huxley quote. The surest way to work up a crusade in favor of some good cause is to promise people they will have a chance of maltreating someone.
Oh, there
to be able
it
to
is.
destroy, to be able to destroy with good conscience, to be able to behave badly and call your bad behavior righteous indignation.
Yeah.
This is the height of psychological luxury, the most delicious of moral treats.
Yeah. To be able to go out and fight in the streets for a just cause. That's what people want to do. They're just so often not really fighting for a just cause. They're just fighting because they want to satisfy their elephant. They want to go out and just beat shit.
Right.
Beat people up. It's very sad.
It is sad. People feel like they need. That's why Fight Club's such a brilliant movie and story. Yeah, people are lacking meaning. They're looking for meaning and direction. And so if you can sell them on some idea of how to get meaning in your life, especially if you can tie it in for young males, if you can tie it into something violent, that's like the most attractive thing ever. Like, oh, yes, going to war, baby.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll see what the spoils of war deliver us.
CO2 emissions have accelerated, and there is now more money being invested in fossil fuel infrastructure.
If only there was more money being invested in shield design, then we'd be all in much better shape, right?
Right. Well, and I thought it was funny too that she says that, and then I just turn around and watch this Kurzgesagt video that says basically the opposite.
Yeah.
It says actually no, the West is doing a good job cutting down on all this.
Who wants
a
to
lot
live,
of CO2 emissions?
Fucking who wants to live in a polluted city?
Nobody.
I mean, I'm stoked about the electric cars. Let them make the electricity, 50 miles outside of town in some nuclear reactor and just ship it in. Have all clean electric cars. It's going to be badass. The future's looking bright. Okay, these people need to chill. They need to just relax. This is the best time ever to live. At no time previously could you dress up in stupid costumes and talk about your religion into a video camera and have people pay you thousands of dollars to do it. Okay.
That's a great point.
Stop being so doomer.
That's a great point.
Enjoy yourself. Well, I guess this is part of the performance thing. I mean, we're making this video. We're going to get called climate denialists. Like, nobody's denying that this shit is happening. We're not doom and gloom about being able to fix it. We believe there are people working on it. I mean, there's evidence there are people working on it. Google carbon scrubbers. I mean, there are all sorts of different solutions. There's one guy that has this, like, they're going to grow weeds. Not many people know this, but plants are, all life forms are predominantly made of carbon. So when a plant grows, it's literally sucking carbon out of the atmosphere that becomes the body of the plant. Like, intuitively, you think whatever the plant is made up of comes from the ground, right? The roots. No, it comes from the air. It's almost like a condensation of carbon on the ground. So that we're going to figure out how to do this through technology. I mean, think how fast weeds grow. If this really became a problem, we could definitely start working on it in very different ways.
They already are.
There's a plan to actually, then this one's crazy, to put particulate matter in the upper atmosphere to shade the rays of the sun. To counteract.
That one seems a little bit more dangerous, though. Yeah.
Have you seen that? There's a PBS special on global dimming versus global warming. Have you seen that PBS special? I think we might have talked about it before. So there's a thing that's happening, and I mean, I'm assuming this is still happening, but evidently when September 11th happened and all of the air traffic was ground for like a week or something, there was this really crazy changes in climate, like super hot days and super cold days.
It got hotter, yeah.
Yeah. Hotter. So they discovered through this event that there's this particulate matter idea is actually happening already. There's so much air traffic over the United States that it's basically blocking out some of the sun, causing a global dimming effect that global warming is counteracting. So there is kind of a balance thing going on already. Which So there are people looking at this shit.
No, exactly. And it's funny because in the article that she read that quote from about keying SUVs, he even talks about that exact thing. About how there are these counteracting global warming effects that people didn't account for.
Yes.
And one of the most important ones, which is kind of hilarious, which again goes back to the dangers of activists who are so certain about something, is that that a lot of the environmental activists push to get a lot of, I forget what it was, they're like sulfite aerosols removed from the market. We don't use sulfite aerosols anymore or something. And it turned out that the sulfite aerosols were basically doing that thing. They were actually cooling the planet off because they would get in the atmosphere and they'd block out some of the sun. So it's like they actually ended up making it worse, by thinking they were making it better.
Yeah. Unintended consequences you don't know. That's why you got to take little steps. You really do.
Yes.
I mean, incrementalism is where it's at, but incrementalism is not sexy.
Well, because incrementalism is where it's at, but it's hard for people to perceptually see the change, so they feel like nothing has actually occurred.
The products of incrementalism are sexy. Like we're gonna have a Martian colony sooner or later. That's fucking badass. That's totally badass.
Yeah.
I think I brought this up before. There's like some documentary about people going to live on the moon. I can't find that documentary anywhere, but it was so interesting because the kind of people that are going to go live on Mars are just, they're losers. They got nothing going here. And I got to admit. Well, no, they interview a bunch of people.
I know what documentary you're talking about.
Have you seen
part
it?
of it.
Okay.
I've seen part of it, yeah.
So they're interviewing all these losers who are just they're comfortable with that. They know that they're losers. They know that they have nothing going on.
Adam,
here.
these are the heroes who are going to live on the first,
no, but I think
non-terrestrial colony, and you're calling them losers.
But this is how humanity works. It's like the outcasts decide, well, fuck it. I'm not having any fun here. I'm going to go live on the moon, you know? I'm going to go colonize Australia. I'm going to the new world. I'm going to go live on Mars. I mean, don't you think? Like, that just embodies, I see it as something beautiful. Somebody who has absolutely nothing can just say, I'm still in it, man. I'm still in the game. I'm still going to go for it. That's awesome. That's awesome. That's winning. That's winning through losing. I love it. Do you disagree?
No, you're right. And that's kind of the irony, is that, yeah, it's the people who don't have anything going for them that often, go out to they press the bounds of, exploration and go do something new, which sometimes it's awful, but sometimes it's amazing.
The outcasts.
Yeah, that's true.
Fucking God bless the outcasts, for heaven's sakes.
Here I must stress that the views of Dr. Mom are not necessarily the views of Philosophy Tube.
Okay. Did you catch the key word there?
Not necessarily. That necessarily is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence.
See, does it say not the views of Philosophy Tube? She says not necessarily the views. Okay.
Yeah, I caught that. I did catch that. Yeah.
That's a pretty sus. That's a pretty sketch.
Not only that, you picked him and put him in your video. What the fuck?
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. Yeah. She's acting like, she just was wandering through the fields and tripped on a rock, and eco-terrorists just happened to be here. How did this happen?
You didn't pick Boren Lomborg for your video to give people hope and optimism. You're basically making a video telling people to, get violent in the streets.
Right.
How is that good for society?
To make the first move. So, Mom, and here I must stress that the views of Dr. Mom are not necessarily the views of Philosophy Tube. Free speech, academic cancel culture, turn around, touch the ground, skin cheese. Mom?
See, if I make it a joke, then it's okay.
Yeah. Oh, it's very funny until you get your Hummer keyed.
Right. Well, it's like, if Nick Fuentes says, his Holocaust denial thing, it's funny. If he makes a cookie joke, then it's okay, right? We learned that from the left. As long as you make it a joke, it's okay to advocate for crazy shit.
Yeah. Ooh, ouch.
Explicitly recommends sabotage. Massiven kriminellen Gewalttaten.
Sabotage. How's she getting away with that Beastie Boys riff?
I think it's probably too short to trigger the
I don't know.
copyright
I've
stuff.
gotten in a lot of trouble with copyright.
I mean, it's literally like 3
As
seconds.
the Ender Galanda slogan puts
but going back to this whole, why I'm saying when I watch the video, I'm like, she's advocating for violence, but is too much of a pussy to do it. Like, so not only does she say not necessarily, when she talks about sabotage, she's like, I'm going to make it cool. We're going to play a sabotage song. I'm going to say it in Latin again or German.
I mean, that was cool when I was a kid. I don't know about, I mean, it's like 100 years ago now.
Well, I understand it, but I'm saying she's trying to make it look appealing. Okay. She's not, it's very obvious she's trying to make violence an appealing thing in this video.
Why don't we go tag up Mars? I got some spray paint. Let's go fucking paint Mars.
Okay.
We are the investment risk. At what point do we escalate? When do we conclude that the time has come to also try something different? When do we start physically attacking the things that consume our planet and destroy them with our own hands? Is there a good reason we have waited this long? Greta Thunberg.
It's so frustrating because when we do fix any climate problems via capitalism and technology and innovation, none of these people, they're all going to be fucking silent or dead, because they've aged out. And no one's going to learn from it. No one's going to fucking learn from it and say, oh, look, it worked. Not blowing up pipelines would have been worse because then it would create a backlash and slowed everything down. people would have to focus their energies on preventing your dumbass from blowing up pipelines.
Yeah.
Turning up at COP27 like, right, motherfuckers! To be clear,
Wait.
Yeah, what the fuck?
is there a good reason we have waited this long? Greta Thunberg turning up at COP27 like, right, motherfuckers!
What is going on here?
She's like, Greta Thunberg should show up with a fucking
You can't do this
gladius.
on YouTube.
And,
Look at that.
yeah.
She looks like Chucky. She's gonna kill us all. This is like a horror movie.
Uh-huh.
What's going on? Real artist.
I just realized her wrist things, are they different lanes? Or or is it the shirt? Isn't like that?
Oh, it might be the shirt. Yeah.
It may be.
Shirt, yeah.
They should try to even that out a little bit.
A real artist would have blood all over that knife, but you know.
There
let's
you
move
go.
on.
To be clear, Mom.
I love a video where this is basically stochastic terrorism. She's advocating for violence, but they're still going to be good enough to bleep the fucks out. I mean, we don't. We bleep our fucks in the first minute of the video, and then it's fuck. Come on.
This video is stochastic terrorism.
Right.
100%. And this is part of why, Caleb Muppet going on Jimmy Dore talking about how, Abigail Thorne, since she got money to make pro-vaccine videos, is obviously a liberal psyop by the government to stamp down on real left-wing activism. And I'm like, first of all, Caleb, you're a dumb fuck because you think Destiny is the kingmaker of BreadTube. Okay, I don't think your information is very good if you think Destiny is the fucking kingmaker of BreadTube. And you have the #1 BreadTuber in the fucking planet is Hassan Piker, the guy who went completely against the mainstream liberal discourse and kept saying Russia was not going to invade Ukraine until the day that it happened. And here we have Abigail Thorne, who Caleb Muppet is over here saying is some sort of government psyop, is advocating for stochastic terrorism.
Crazy.
It's so dumb.
Yeah.
It's all so dumb.
It is funny though. I mean, the ignorance we're surrounded with at all times amuses me.
Yeah.
It totally amuses me.
Is that
wrong?
It's funny. No, it does amuse me too, because it's like you have these class reductionist Marxists. This is what's so annoying. Marxists literally only have 3 ways of attacking you. They say you're either a racist, a fascist, or a liberal.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And when they say you're a liberal, they generally mean you're secretly a racist or a fascist or both.
Right.
And so you have all these class reductionist Marxists who don't like identity politics Marxists, which we don't like them either, who go around saying, "Oh, they're really liberals. That's it. They're not Marxists. They're not neo-Marxists. They're not cultural Marxists. They're really secretly liberals."
Scary.
That drives me crazy.
Doesn't want violence against people. He advocates targeted sabotage of fossil fuel emitting devices like SUVs and power plants as part of a mass movement that remains overwhelmingly non-violent. So he doesn't want guillotines, but he does want people to consider moving from protest to direct action.
So this is so bullshit. He's like, oh, he just wants you to blow up buildings and destroy cars. That's not violence, right?
That is definitely violence. I'm glad you brought the definition in ahead of time because, that's violence. Yeah.
Yeah. Sabotaging gas stations and factories is violence. I don't know what the fuck you think is happening. And it's so dumb to say, oh, I'm only advocating for the destruction of property. I don't advocate for hurting people. Oh, really? So when you and your eco-terrorists start destroying property, what's going to happen once the police and start cracking down on that? Are you just going to let yourselves get arrested? Or are you going to fight back?
Yeah.
Are you going to if you can already justify blowing up factories and pipelines to save the world, then obviously you're going to justify killing people to save the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's obviously going to go to that route and say, well, we need to start assassinating, key polluters.
Well, also they They don't understand the types of characters that you have to get in bed with if you're going to blow up these various kinds of locations. And also, I mean, people work at these locations you want to blow up. So, I mean, they're probably going to be pretty upset when you blew up their workplace. Yeah. They're not going to like
You're
that.
right.
But this is Philosophy Tube. And on this show, we know that the interesting intellectual and emotional stuff comes out when people try to defend the tensions in what they think. So, why do so many people have this discomfort, almost hypocrisy, around violence?
So do you think, so she set up this question, which is, am I, Philosophy Tube, a big fat hypocrite for sitting around absorbing Patreon money to dress up in costumes?
Right. Not get out there and punch people in the face.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you think she's going to adequately address?
Of course not. I mean, there are jobs where security, working in security, working as a police officer, working in the military, where, you know, you're going to get beat up for a living. So you're going to have to pry people off of each other. You're going to put yourself at bodily risk. Yeah. It's just glorious coming from her talking about this kind of stuff. Yeah.
It seems very egotistical to me that even in this video that's, I would say, is stochastic terrorism and is a call for violence, it still has to be like framed in this like, well, why don't I do the violence? It comes across as like, listen, I'm the thought leader. I'm going to sit up here on my devoir and I'm going to tell you guys what to do. You guys are the labor. I'm the boss. Wait, no, I don't want to say that. I'm a communist. Okay. You guys are the direct actors. I am the thought leader. That sounds better, right? I'm the thought leader. I'm bringing awareness to the issue.
Yeah. Yeah. It is hypocritical, but anyway, self-awareness is off in this video for her.
Maybe what we need is a clear-cut case to sharpen our critical skills. So, let's take it to the extreme. Let's talk about guillotines.
All right, I'm ready.
France in
Perfect. Look at that. Ah, saved all of you. Saved.
What did you do? What did you do?
What
You're
are you
censoring
talking
it?
about? What? We don't want our listen. Kids,
there's nothing even to censor.
Kids today we need to think about the trans kids. Okay?
Oh my God. There's nothing to even censor.
The trans kids. You got to admit the way the censor is set up though.
It makes it look worse.
It makes it look like she's
the censor makes it
completely
worse.
naked.
Yes.
Come on, this adds value to the show.
That
really
makes it
does.
look so much worse.
It does.
That makes it look
yeah,
so
no, I
much
set it up
worse.
perfectly. Look at that. Oh yeah.
Like Chad is saying thought leader, THOT. There you go. Abigail's the thought leader. I like it.
in the 19th century was an absolute monarchy. That's a political system in which the monarch is not bound by any written law, so they have a right to do anything you can't stop them from doing.
Ooh.
They had a lot of debt, and poor people paid more taxes than rich people because rich people wrote all the laws. And rich people had so captured the state that meaningful reform just wasn't happening. Plus ça change, plus la même chose. The people of France decided they'd had enough, so they wrote strongly worded letters and held peaceful protests until the people in charge felt so bad they changed their ways. I'm just kidding. They cut the king's goddamn head off. And almost immediately.
This is so dishonest.
Everything we cover, that's like the theme. It's just complete dishonesty.
She's obviously comparing our current system to a fucking absolute monarchy. Okay. Where people, listen, if you have a violent revolution under an absolute monarchy, fucking go for it.
Yeah,
I don't care.
Do it. I'm all in favor. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nobody
You're
wants to
living
be
under-
subjugated by a bunch of fucking assholes.
Right. You're living under a system where you have no recourse or redress whatsoever for anything. in the government. Okay. So go fucking nuts. I think it's totally morally fine to go fucking start a rebellion under an absolute monarchy. You can't compare that when you live in a democracy where people vote for the type of governance they want.
Yeah.
Because suddenly you're saying, hey, I'm going to use my violence over the will of the majority of the people I'm living with.
Yeah. And then suddenly you're the dick.
Right. Then you're the authoritarian.
Yeah.
Because you're saying, I know best through violence.
Yeah.
Better than anyone else.
Yeah. So simple.
European politicians and philosophers shit their fucking pants. But one man could always be relied upon to keep his pants firmly unshitted. And that was Prussian philosopher Immanuel Kant.
Oh,
Kant wrote a lot of famous books like The Critique of Pure Reason, Groundwork of the Metaphysics of Morals, Harry Potter and the Metaphysics of Justice, all of which philosophy students will know. But today I want to look...
That's a little transphobic, Abigail. Can't believe you made that joke. Fuck.
Really?
Did you know J.K. Rowling and Harry Potter is bad?
Did you know that the reactionaries love Kant to death? Oh, God, they're so...
Oh, really?
They can't stop talking about Kant.
They can't stop talking about Kant?
Nope, yeah. I knew you were going to make that joke. Such a lazy, fucking low-rent joke. Oh.
You said it, not me. Okay.
No, I didn't say it.
Emphasized it really stupidly.
Yeah, can't.
Should I bring up the soundboard? Do we need some laugh track?
No, thank you. The reactionaries, they love them some Kant.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
They do. Yeah.
Listen,
Abigail should know that.
Listen. I'm just a humble American man. Okay, from the South. I don't know nothing about your fancy schmancy European philosophizers. Okay, I don't know anything about that. If it's not in my constitution, I don't want to know it, damn it.
Good.
Look at some of his lesser known albums, his later stuff, his B-sides, because Kant actually lived through the French...
Does anyone even get that reference anymore?
B-sides? Nah.
B-sides?
Yeah. Is that like a different folder?
Seriously, does anyone under the age of 40 know what the fuck a B-side is? I mean, yeah. I guess I fit that category, but I barely fit that category of my knowledge. I'd be like, Mom, Dad, what's a B-side? They're like, well, you see, 1,000,000 years ago when we had records.
Yes. There was the primary side that had the good song, and then the other shit song that they pressed into the other side that nobody ever listened to. Yeah. That's why it's the A team and not the B team.
French Revolution. I say lived through. He never actually went to France, but he read about it on 19th century Twitter. And he had some thoughts that have puzzled philosophers since, because even Kant had some seemingly contradictory ideas about political violence. On the one hand, Kant was an enthusiastic supporter of the revolution.
I like this. The argument that she's making is really smart people sometimes have contradictory ideas. So just look away. Look away because I have these contradictory ideas.
It's funny the first time I listened to this video, I missed that.
That she's comparing herself to Kant?
Yeah, that's why she's bringing up Kant. And you're so right. It's because it's like, listen, I'm not a hypocrite. Okay, look at this smart guy. Okay, he was in favor of the revolution, and yet, contradictory.
That would be fun. So much so that he acquired the nickname the Old Jacobin. The Jacobins were the more radical wing of the revolution. When things first got going, it looked like France might become a constitutional monarchy like Britain, where you keep the monarch, but they have to follow some laws. And the Jacobins were like, une monarchie constitutionnelle, mais que diriez-vous à la place? La guillotine. And eventually they won. Kant thought republicanism was great.
Just leaving out that, there was a moderate, liberal party that wanted to get rid of the king, but also didn't want to be proto-communist, and the Jacobins said, fuck you.
Oh, ouch.
It's funny because the French Revolution, obviously this is before, Marxism, but it's kind of like the perfect story of why this kind of leftist philosophy will never work, because you have, people are living under an authoritarian system that sucks. The extreme leftists come in, they take over, they start witch hunting everyone, making everything worse. People getting, they're killing all these people left and right. They become the authoritarians themselves. And who emerges from the chaos? A little man you might know called Napoleon. And then he decides to start conquering the fucking rest of Europe.
Wow.
So, I mean, it's so annoying, because all this shit just keeps happening in this cycle with leftists, and they don't see it. They don't notice it.
Yeah, they set up an atmosphere where might makes right, and then they wonder why everything devolves into chaos.
Right. They're like, we're going to create a perfect system where there's no hierarchy. We're going to get rid of coercion and force.
Yeah.
And in order to do that, we're going to have to use coercion and force, where might makes right.
Yeah.
And then what happens every time? Oh, you created a power vacuum where some fucking authoritarian guy rises to the top and takes over. Oh, shocking. How many times are we going to play this stupid game again and again and again for these dolts to get it drilled into their skulls? This stupid shit doesn't work.
I feel like your microphone went low a bit, so just FYI.
It went low?
Yeah.
Like quiet?
Yeah.
Still?
Like you moved away or something.
What about now?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Rational form of government. On the other hand, he condemned killing the king and any kind of violence and even breaking the law. He was very explicit about that. All resistance against the supreme legislative power, all incitement of the subject to violent expressions of discontent, all defiance which breaks out into rebellion is the greatest and most punishable crime in a commonwealth, for it destroys its very foundations. This prohibition is absolute. And even if the power of the state or its agent, the head of state, has violated the original contract by authorizing the government to act tyrannically, and has thereby, in the eyes of the subject, forfeited the right to legislate, the subject is still not entitled to offer counter-resistance. And
Oh, wait, let's go back a second. Look at that quote.
This video is a mess, too. This is like... People are watching
counter-resistance.
Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to get it, the full quote.
People are watching these videos because of the costumes. This is just...
Of course.
I mean, this is garbage tier content. I'm just going to say it.
I mean, it's just... demoralizing.
I mean... It's completely... It's a garbled mess. Like, where are we going here?
So we start the video on
climate change, and now we're in the French Revolution.
We should be eco-terrorists.
Right. So now we're going to make a justification for violence.
Right. And then
but I mean, how is this a justification for violence? Just because a bunch of people in France a long time ago thought, like, this is their musings on violence? I mean, who cares?
Well, but this quote is the opposite, because this is Kant saying you should never
revolt.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which... I don't like. Listen, I'm not, as I said, I'm not some big philosophizer. Okay, I don't know much about Kant. Okay, I can't be bothered. But this seems like a really stupid position to have. Like, if you had this position in terms of a democracy where people are voting to establish the order, I would understand the position. And he kind of goes, and I think she talks about this. She kind of goes on about how, the reason you have government in the first place is to work out the differences between groups of people. And you always have to have some sort of outside arbiter.
Conflict resolution,
Yeah, to dictate that. And thus, if you destroy that outside arbiter, there's no one to, there's no force to, like, decide what is right or wrong, really.
Well, there is. But it's fucking violence.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but he's obviously not talking about that. But I don't see how you could say this under a monarch, an absolute monarchy. It doesn't make any sense to me. Why would you justify the government, who is just using force, it is just saying might makes right? Why would you justify them having legal sway over you at all?
violence, and philosophers since Kant have tried to figure out how he squared these two apparently contradictory ideas, liking the French Revolution, but opposing the French Revolution. Kant was quite into what philosophers call social contract theory. It was really big in the Enlightenment. There's lots of different versions, but the basic idea is, imagine a time before society called the state of nature, where there are no laws. It's not a real time like the Dark Ages or the Roman Empire. It's a rhetorical figure, like the age of heroes or the time of gods and monsters. In the state of nature, everybody has authority over themselves. So in that sense, they have a certain freedom. But because people's interests conflict, everybody's fighting all the time. So they come together and they transfer their individual authority to a government so they can decide what to do when people's interests conflict. That way we replace violence with politics. In return, the government might promise to do some stuff like follow the law, depends which version of the theory you're talking about. The problem of organizing a state, however hard it may seem, can be...
So that's an important conception. We're replacing violence with politics.
Okay.
Which partly explains why we get so upset and so angry whenever we have these political conversations, because this is us. We're having violent conversations essentially, or we're sublimating violence through politics.
Well, we're arguing over resources, and that's always going to be contentious.
Sure.
The old way we used to argue over resources was, hey, they have some stuff. Let's organize a bunch of guys and take it from them, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So why would you want to... I mean, I guess that's why this is so bizarre. So she's advocating to deconstruct politics again back into violence in this video?
Yeah, I'm not certain. This took a weird turn. I mean, I thought we were talking about climate change, but I guess...
Yeah. Well, don't worry. It'll take another weird turn.
Well, it's just bad. It's really bad writing because it's set me up to think we're talking... Oh, I guess the name of the video is Violence and Protest. So
yeah, it's not about... This isn't about climate change. It's about whether it's okay to commit violence.
Right.
That's the theme of this.
I gotcha. So
and now she has to create a framework where it's acceptable for her to not do violence, but to advocate for violence.
Right. Yeah. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Be solved even for a race of devils if only they are intelligent. The problem is, given a multitude of rational beings requiring universal laws for their preservation, but each of whom is secretly inclined to exempt himself from them, to establish a constitution in such a way that although their private intentions conflict, they check each other, with the result that their public conduct is the same as if they had no such intentions.
Let me go back for just a second.
They had no such intention.
Given a multitude of rational beings requiring universal law for their preservation, but each of whom is secretly inclined to exempt himself from them, to establish a constitution in such a way, although their private intentions conflict, they check each other. With the result that their public conduct is the same as if they didn't have those intentions. So he's saying that basically we have a system. Is that you have a bunch of people who have universal laws, but they all secretly want to take over, and all the people that secretly want to take over will kind of check each other's power to prevent any of them from secretly taking over. I don't know. I mean,
I'm back.
I don't know if I believe this is the way the world works. This is a very maybe it's a black pill way of looking at how democracy or any system works. And obviously, this guy is from before Western democracies swept Europe and America. So, but
who's the race of devils?
He's saying even a race of devils.
Oh,
so even the worst people could create a functioning government under this framework.
Okay.
But I think the key here is requiring universal laws. And I think that's the key to creating any fair or stable system is that there has to be laws that apply to everyone universally. And that's part of why Marxism and Marxist-inspired philosophies will never work, because they don't believe in universal laws for everyone.
And this is why Kant thought that citizens have no right to rise up against their governments or even to question them. Suppose the people of a country felt their government was too harsh, so they started rebelling. The government could turn around and say the only
Now, do you see why the neo-reactionaries like Kant so much?
Oh, well, there you go. Yeah.
reason we're being harsh is to quash the rebellion. And who's to decide who's in the right? You can't have another government above the government to decide who's right when the people in the government disagree. The whole point of having a government is they decide what happens when people disagree. Now, at this point, it might be tempting to say that Kant is not only licking boot, he's wrapping the boot in pate and baking it in pastry. A kind of Wellington boot, if you will. But the key here is, he's not saying challenging the government would necessarily result in disaster, just that it would be intellectually inconsistent. You want to have a social contract, but you also don't want to give up your individual authority. Well, sorry, but that doesn't make sense. You can't have both. This is a classic Kantian move, to insist that the thing you want must not be contradictory. If you can grasp what he's doing here, then a lot of the rest of his stuff will start making sense. And generations of philosophy students have felt that same frustration you might be feeling, where it's like, come on, Kant, what are you, a Vulcan? People aren't 100% rational all the time. We're not consistent.
So this entire section, which we're thankfully almost through, because I don't have much to say about it, it is completely out of place for the rest of the video.
Yeah, I was like, what the fuck?
And I think that this entire section does feel like the unnecessary ego insertion of why it's okay for me to advocate for violence and not participate.
Right. Because this tired old philosopher that I dug up agrees with me.
Sort of.
I just hate
sort
this
of
argument. It's like, this is the problem. This is the problem I have with a lot of the way people make arguments. They're like, I believe this thing. And let me search throughout history to find some philosopher a long time ago that wrote about it and also believes it. But it's not based on any evidence, whatever. It's like, come on, sooner or later, you got to bring it into the real world. What does this have to do with what's going on now? You know, this doesn't answer any questions about whether or not violence works, you know, how to create stable societies. Like, this is not, yeah. So, yeah, Kant agrees with you on your crazy opinion. That is dumb. Okay. Congratulations.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm sure there are plenty of philosophers who disagreed with Kant that we could dig out to find one that agrees with whatever opinion I have.
We hear that you are a good man. You cannot be bought. But the lightning which strikes the house also cannot be bought. You hold to what you said. But what did you say? You are honest, you say your opinion. Which opinion? You are brave, against whom? You are wise, for whom? You do not consider your personal advantages? Well, whose advantages do you consider then? You are a good friend. Are you also a good friend of the good people?
Fuck.
What does that mean?
This is fucking painful, Sitch. This is like, why is this in here?
I'm not sure exactly what that means, but it sounds really insidious to me. Like, this is my moral intuition. Something about this, I can't put my finger on it. I feel that this is some kind of weird socialist thing.
Like, there's context missing here for us.
Like, this
fellow traveler.
This feels wrong. I'm Googling this to see what the context of this is.
You are brave. Against whom? You are wise. For whom? Do you not
So-
consider personal advantage? Whose advantage do you consider that?
Here's some interpretations to this. Bertolt Brecht's poem, The Interrogation of the Good, is an allegory for the Moscow show trials and mass purges in the Soviet Union under the reign of Joseph Stalin. The poem is deliberately written to be interpreted in two radically opposed ways, one condemning the political repression and one condoning it. It's important to note the authorial background. Brecht was a committed, lifelong Marxist, profoundly shaken by watching his native country descend into Nazism.
Wow. Okay.
Okay. I could sense that from the language. It's kind of interesting. Yes, okay, he was German, obviously. Brecht imbued much of his work with a Marxian perspective and scathing criticism of fascism. This poem, too, makes a subtle critique of fascism and its inherent moral bankruptcy. The first interpretation is relatively straightforward. It is a condemnation of the brutal systemic repression of all real and suspected opposition to Joseph Stalin's rule in the Soviet Union. The poem takes the form of a typical show trial. The defendant is brought before a tribunal and may be assumed involuntarily, and he is not allowed to speak in his defense. The presiding judge has already determined guilt of the accused. The proceedings are merely public performance to legitimize the defendant's punishment and instill fear in the population to deter disobedience. Much like the Cardassians from Star Trek, not the people with a big ass. They had in Deep Space Nine, you learn in the Cardassians,
Deep space.
All the trials are determined before, all the verdicts are determined before the trials occur.
But they still have to have the trial. They have to act it out. They still have to
have the trial, yes. And they found it utterly barbaric that these Federation humans would have trials to determine guilt or innocence.
That is pretty hilarious.
Okay, let me skip ahead. The second interpretation is antithetical to the first. It is also far more interesting and raises deeper questions about the nature of good and evil. The poem does not condemn, but condone the mass repression of dissident elements in the Soviet Union. It accepts Stalin's rationale and exonerates all forms of revolutionary violence. Ruthless, indifferent to the fate any counter-revolutionary. No crime is too egregious if committed for a just cause. No cause is more righteous than that of the communist revolutionary in the liberation of humanity. See, when she was reading it, this is the sense I was getting. This was the interpretation I was kind of feeling out here. All good deeds and virtues are meaningless if they're in the service to the oppression and exploitation of man by man. The title of the poem establishes that it is the very concept of good that is on trial. The pertinent question the poem asks are, what does it mean to be good when in the service of an evil cause? And what worth is virtue when possessed by perpetrators of evil? The poem is explicit in its characterization of the defendant being honest, brave, wise, loyal, and selfless. But he's also a committed enemy of the working class and their emancipation. Interesting. So that was the feeling and sense I got. And I guess that's the question. So, but see, this is so annoying. This is why Philosophy Tube's a fucking pussy. So, not only does she strongly hint in favor of using violence for political gain, but is too cowardly to flat out say it. She intentionally chooses a Marxian poem that can be interpreted either to be in favor of violent revolution or anti-violent communist authoritarianism.
Man, I'm dying to know how these videos come into existence.
Oh, that's so annoying.
I just feel like this is something that was stumbled upon on the internet in cobbling together things to say in the video. I mean, I wouldn't even call this a script. I would just call it things to say in the video.
Oh, I found, it's so funny. I know how she found it.
How?
Apparently this poem is translated in a book by Slavoj Zizek.
Oh, yeah. They all share the same stuff.
So that's probably where she got. She probably read this Slavoj Zizek book.
Or heard him talking about it in some video or something.
Or, yeah, I heard him talking.
Yeah.
You should have read it like, step forward. We heard that you are a good man.
God, I hate that guy. I can't listen to his videos because I feel just disgusted as he talks. I feel like if I was sitting next to him, I'd just have drizzle coming down all over me.
You cannot be mocked. She should have read it like that.
Supposedly he has a speech impediment. I think we got halfway through a Slajog Zizak video and someone told us, you're making fun of, he has a disease or something.
Yeah, obviously he has a speech impediment.
Yeah, but we were being completely ableist the whole time.
I know.
We thought it was just like some weird accent.
No.
Turns out he had like part of his brain removed or something.
Was it that or something?
No.
Was it mechanical?
I'm being hyperbolic.
Speech impediment.
Yeah.
Because I forgot what caused it. But I mean, yeah, obviously it's some issue. Let's see. It's known as slushy lips informally.
Oh my, no way. He has mush mouth.
Less formally known as a lateral lisp in speech language pathology. The speech error is sometimes transcribed with following whatever. The air passes over sides of the tongue. Yeah, but can't he? I mean, for people that have speech impediments, you can go to a speech pathologist and like try to not have a speech impediment, right? Right? I don't know. So I don't know why he chose not to work on that, but interesting.
Hear us then. We know you are our enemy. This is why we shall now put you in front of a wall. But in consideration of your merits and good qualities, we shall put you in front of a good wall, and shoot you with a good bullet from a good gun, and bury you with a good shovel.
Wait, you only let half the poem play.
I forgot that there was more.
Yeah, this
This
is far more specific.
Insidious?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the good earth.
See, I would, since this whole video seems to be an advocation for violence, I think the poem has to be interpreted as you're not a good person if you stand in the way of revolution.
Yeah.
It wouldn't make sense in the other interpretation in this context whatsoever.
Kooky.
So there you go. Philosophy Tube. Advocating for violence and stochastic terrorism. Yeah.
Yeah. Totally acceptable. So
the last thing we get is this stupid poem. What the fuck? So Abigail, Philosophy Tube, such a coward, doesn't clearly say what the fuck the point of this video is or what her position is in the video. Just ends it with this fucking poem. That's fucking disgusting.
Yeah.
Okay, if you're gonna be a shithead and you're gonna advocate for violence and stochastic terrorism, at least have the balls to do it. No pun intended. At least come out and do it. Okay, don't hide behind 20 layers of fucking irony and winks and nudges and poems that can be interpreted intentionally in either direction.
This video is completely vapid. I think vapid is the perfect word.
I think
lacking taste, flavor, or tang. Lacking significance, liveliness, spirit, or zest.
I think the video is not vapid. I think the video is evil. I think this is evil. I do think this
is it dishonest? I mean, evil is
dishonest.
A contested category. So
I do think this video is an advocation for violence and stochastic terrorism. And I would argue to her face, if she, because she'll say, no, you misunderstand me. I'll say, fuck you. You intentionally made it vague. You intentionally didn't say exactly what your position is. So it's entirely reasonable for me or anyone else to think that you're advocating for violence and you're being an irresponsible fuckwit with your platform. So fuck you, Philosophy Tube.
I'm curious, how come you can say fuck you to someone's face, but misgendering them is a thought crime? Or
because
a hate crime, rather.
Well, because when you tell someone that the fuck you, they generally,
Right.
it's not thought that you saying that's going to cause them to go kill themselves.
Right.
So.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. No, I hate this video more than anything because it's meaningless. I mean, I guess you're saying you have to read between the lines to get
Right.
None of that was really clearly articulated. And I think 90% of the video was just fluff. Nonsense fluff.
This is like the left-wing version of a right-winger, of a fringe right-winger making some kind of weird Holocaust denial video.
Or
they don't want to say it. Or not
race
Holocaust denial,
essentialism or any one of the things.
No, like specifically, this would be a weird right winger, making a race essentialist video, but not clearly saying that's what it is. But it's very clear that's the intention of what it is.
Yeah.
Which we know someone who did that. But that's the story for another day. Anyways, back to the harmonica.
Back to the outro.
Well, I just want to make sure that we didn't get any sort of conclusion because we asked the question. Will there be a definitive conclusion? And the answer was no.
Violence and protest. Didn't really talk a lot about protests. Talked a lot about violence in just a superficial, meaningless way. And then clearly advocated for violence in this stupid poem in the end. What a mess!
What a mess. Anyways, thank you all for coming. Thank you all for your incredibly generous donations. We will be reading the rest of the Super Chats on Tuesday. And I believe we'll also be talking to distributors. So that will be a fun conversation. And thank you so much for coming with us on a journey to watch Philosophy Tube descend into advocating for shitty violence and stochastic terrorism while still being too much of a pussy to actually be open and honest about it. Anyway, hope to see you all on Tuesday.
Bye-bye! Hi, you just listened to a clip from the Sitch and Adams show. If you like what you heard, you can listen to our live show right here on this channel on Sunday, starting at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. And if you want, you can super chat us. We read $20 and up super chats on the show and then do a follow-up stream on the following Tuesday where we read the rest of the unread super chats and interact with fans of the show. Subscribe to this channel right here to listen to the live show or to listen to more of our awesome clips.